Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain from WDBO in Orlando, Florida, as we continue our tour of stations across America. I go home tomorrow night. My wife and kids are so ready for me to get home. Does this happen to y'all when you travel? Things happen at home, so I hit the road to start the station tour. And the dog has gotten sick. The dryer has broken. The dryer is fixed. The dog's still sick. My wife is beside herself. The dog, I think, will be fine, but my goodness gracious. Every time you go out of town, stuff like this happens. Now, had a caller a little while ago in the last hour about what can be done about these DAs. Well, it's not just the DAs in some cases. It's the judges, but it's the DAs. So in Memphis, Tennessee, several youths were in a shootout with police. Police officers were killed. Several of the youth who were in the shootout with them were killed. There's one surviving young gangbanger, and the district attorney has decided not to prosecute him for murder because there might have been friendly fire that actually cost the officer his life. Now, where I'm from, in Tennessee, in the law, you can still be charged with murder because but for you opening fire on the police would not have been put in harm's way. You are culpable for his death, even if it might have been friendly fire. But nope, the DA, who is a progressive, I believe one of the Soros-funded progressive DAs, said, no, we're not going to charge this kid with murder. Now, there's a judge. This is going to blow your mind. An Indianapolis woman who admitted to fatally smothering her baby while high on meth became overwhelmed and hid her face in her hands when a controversial judge allowed her to walk free. Dacia Lacey, 32, was found not guilty of neglect of a dependent, resulting in the 2022 death of her daughter, Alona, by Judge Mark Stoner, who is already facing calls to resign after giving a mentally ill man who fatally shot a police officer a sentence of time served. The mom was cleared even though the judge told her it was, quote, a case that happens when you're a bad parent, end quote. The judge said, there are some things you can never do. You can never have sole possession of your children and go out and use drugs. You're not innocent, but you're not guilty of what the state has charged you with. She faced up to 40 years in prison if convicted, and the judge told her he would find her not guilty in a bench trial because he thought the state was too excessive because she was high on drugs when she killed her child. The legislature could remove this guy, or the voters can, because he's an elected judge, and the voters are going to have to step up at some point. Voters have to take a stand. Now, having said that, I got to move on. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I got to talk about this WNBA stuff because this was percolating yesterday while I was on air, and I got to it a little bit. But it's become a thing now. The Democrats are weighing in on this. Joe Biden has taken a stand over Caitlin Clark's paltry salary in the WNBA, saying we need equal pay. The women's basketball team players should make what the men's basketball team players make. Axios, the left-wing news site, is calling it a pay gap. There's a pay gap between the NBA and the WNBA. Now, when you understand the story, you can begin to understand why it is that so many members of the media have run stories that with inflation falling, prices have gone down. What are people complaining about? Because that's not actually what happened. Inflation's still going up, just not up as high, just not up as much. Prices are not coming down. But the media concluded that because inflation's down, prices are down because they are idiots. And now they've concluded that because Caitlin Clark is such a star, how dare she only make $300,000 over 4 years when NBA stars will make up to $50 million over 4 years. For those of you in Rio Linda, ticket sales, TV contracts, ratings, fan merchandise, interest in players, they all play a role in the salaries. No one cares about the WNBA. If they cared about the WNBA, their arenas would be full. If you've ever unfortunately come across a WNBA game, you'll notice how empty the arena is. In fact, the camera positions are typically in fixed positions at angles so that they don't show the arena. Rarely at a WNBA game do they show you the fans in the audience. They keep the camera on the court because there are no fans to see. A player gets paid in a league based on the money generated by the league. This isn't hard. It's only hard for Democrats who have so bought into equity, they think the men in the NBA need to subsidize the women in the WNBA, which is a completely separate league. Oh, it's tied to the NBA for sure, but it's a separate league. You get LeBron James or some of the famous NBA players to go play in the women's teams, you'll see the ratings go up. You'll see the crowds come. You'll see the money come in, and you'll see the pay go up. Caitlin Clark has decided to embrace obscurity in the WNBA. God bless her. She'll bring more interest. She'll bring more eyeballs. She'll bring more ratings. The team that she's going to be on, I think in Indiana, it's already got more of its games scheduled on television for this coming year because of Caitlin Clark. Her celebrity helps. There's a quote circulating from a parody account. I like to believe it's true. It's a quote attributed to Caitlin Clark. The quote is, I don't think we should be paid the same as NBA players. They get more views. But I do think WNBA players should be paid more than Live Golf. Nobody watches them. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I like to believe it's true because it is true. Did you know that the American Shuffleboard finals on ESPN, did you hear about this, Charlie? The American Shuffleboard finals on ESPN. Yes, American Shuffleboard final competition on ESPN got more viewers than the latest Live competition. There were more than 400,000 people who tuned into the American Shuffleboard competition on ESPN and only like 300,000 who tuned into the Live Golf tournament on I think it's on the CW or whatever, between reruns of Dawson's Creek and the OC. They run Live Golf competitions at night and on the weekends, selling like Billy Mays OxyClean. It's not, I mean, people aren't watching it. Listen, I really don't care about the PGA Live stuff other than, let's be clear here, the Live guys went for the money, and the PGA is more interesting because of the way the amateurs can break in a way they can in Live. I don't care if you like Live or not. Let's just be honest. The style of play, the pace of play, the lack of play, and the ratings don't measure up to what the Saudis are subsidizing them as to try to build the league. God bless the Saudis for doing it, but I'd rather watch the PGA Tour where you actually have to win to make money. I like the meritocracy of the PGA compared to the autocracy of Live, funded by the Saudis. But back to the WNBA. This outrage from the left, this outrage from Democrats over Caitlin Clark's pay. God bless her for going forward into obscurity in the WNBA. If the Democrats really, really cared about this, you know what? Joe Biden should go do fundraisers at a WNBA game and draw in a crowd to watch a WNBA game. The feminists in their comfortable shoes who lecture Americans, not about unibrows, but about the WNBA, they should actually go watch the games. If you care about Caitlin Clark's money, go watch the games. But the reality here and what they're missing is like Otani. So there's a big story out today about Otani. You know, the Dodgers player from Japan. And there were suspicions that maybe his interpreter was the fall guy for Shohei Ohtani's gambling addiction. No, it turns out from the big report released today that Ohtani really was taken advantage of by this interpreter. So the interpreter changed a bank account that Ohtani was getting. So he set up the bank account for Ohtani, sent all the notifications, all the bank account statements, everything to himself. And the lawyers, the tax preparers, the accountants, the managers all say when they would ask Ohtani about the bank account, the manager would reply that Ohtani wants to keep the bank account private and that the manager the interpreter himself handled everything to do with the account. So the manager would apparently speak to Ohtani. When they asked, so what about this bank account, he would say something to Ohtani, not about the bank account, and then reply back in English. And Ohtani doesn't speak English. He had no idea this was going on. And they've got enough evidence now, it really does appear that it was the interpreter who has done this, stole $16, $18 million from Ohtani. But the purpose of this tie into the WNBA is that in the story, I think it was at Bloomberg, it's not a lot of money relative to Ohtani's earnings. But what they say is that most Americans don't understand how much money Shohei Ohtani makes in endorsement deals in Japan. He's the most popular baseball player in Japan, even though he plays for the Dodgers. And he makes millions more in endorsement deals. And that's the same thing with Caitlin Clark. She's not going to make much money from the WNBA. But every feminist in America who cannot deign to go watch a WNBA game will go buy a box of Wheaties if Caitlin Clark's face is on it because, yay, feminism, hear me roar. Caitlin Clark is going to get a ton of money from endorsement deals from around the country. Subaru, Wheaties, you name it. They're probably all after her. Apparently she has a boyfriend, so maybe not Subaru. But anyway, she's going to get massive endorsement deals. She's going to make a lot of money. And she deserves it. She's a great basketball player in her own right. Forget the male-female stuff. Just as a basketball player, she's a great basketball player. But the fact that Joe Biden has decided to politicize this as a grievance, dumb people might buy it from Joe Biden. Dumb people might buy it from Ro Khanna, the progressive in California, who's complaining about it. But the truth of the matter is ratings matter, ticket sales matter, metrics matter. Your feelings do not matter. LeBron James is not going to give up part of his salary to give it to Caitlin Clark so that you feel better about your life. If you want her to make more money, go to her games, buy the jerseys, tune in, drive up the ratings. And I suspect there's going to be a ratings bump. I suspect there will be a ticket sales increase. I suspect this may be the moment of relevance for one WNBA team, and then people will go to that game and think, oh my gosh, they're not playing each other on this team. There happen to actually be more than one WNBA team. Maybe I'll take an interest in it for a year until it fades and people go back to watching the men play sports. Because the God's honest truth, it's not my opinion. The truth is, people want to watch the men play sports. They don't really want to watch the women play sports. Not in any league. I can't think of, other than maybe beach volleyball, there isn't really a massive interest in women's sports. That's just, it's not my opinion. It's the truth. The LPGA doesn't get as much coverage as the PGA. The WNBA doesn't get as much coverage as the NBA. The Women's Bowling League doesn't get as much coverage as the Men's Bowling League. Softball doesn't get as much coverage as baseball. People want to watch the dudes play. They don't really watch the women play. And that's also liberals. Liberals as well. They do it too. And then they complain about you for doing it because you are their proxy for guilt and shame, because God forbid they ever admit that they're doing exactly what you're doing. But the ratings show that they're just like you. They don't watch it either. They just morally preen about it. Hello, my people. 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, just hang on if you've got a call, because I don't have enough time in the segment to take it, but I do want to play for you the wild audio you may have seen. This is Joe Biden talking about Israel.
And I made it clear to Israelis, don't Haifa. It's just not, I mean, anyway, I just, look what we did recently when Israel was attacked.
Now, if you don't know, maybe I can't blame you for not knowing, but the President of the United States should know Haifa is a city in Israel. That Israel is not trying to invade Haifa. Haifa is an Israeli city. He was talking about Rafah. By the way, there is some breaking news on this front. According to sources inside the White House, the White House has told Israel it will sanction Israel's invasion of Rafah in exchange for Israel not going hard against Iran in a retaliatory attack. Not a bad deal, honestly. They're giving Israel what it wants. Now, the white progressives of the American media who hate Benjamin Netanyahu have settled on a conspiracy theory of their own that Benjamin Netanyahu is dragging this thing out because he'll be removed from office when it's over, and so he's dragging out the war because Benjamin Netanyahu wants to hold on to power and avoid prosecution, and that's what's going on. The same white progressives are infatuated by the idea of a two-state solution in Israel, which only that's a thing white progressives in America like. Israel has offered a two-state solution repeatedly to the Palestinians, and each time the Palestinians have rejected it. There's a resolution before the UN Security Council today that would recognize Palestine as a country and admit it to the United Nations. The U.S. is expected to veto it, as they should. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they actually do. But they should veto it. We'll see whether or not they actually do. The reality is this. Israel needs to wipe out Hamas. Hamas are monstrous terrorists, and also the political leadership of Gaza. And they must be eradicated. And if they can do it, well, God bless them for doing it. Now, I got to tell you about Stamps.com, y'all. They can save you some money. I got a question the other day about the obligations. Listen, so you do pay. You go to Stamps.com, you click on the microphone, and you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K, and you're going to pay, like, there's a monthly fee, but it's okay. You can cancel at any time. There's no long-term contract. And then, this is what's so useful. They send you a digital scale that you don't have to pay for. They even send you postage you don't have to pay for. And if you then ship a lot, you get up to 89% off UPS and post office rates. You actually do save money. I know because I am a member of Stamps.com. I take advantage of it, and I have shipped so much and saved so much by using Stamps.com, and I never have to go stand in line at the post office or at UPS. They come to me. There's a very easy, you click the box, you say pick up delivery, they come to you. You can do it all. Stamps.com has a great interface. All you need is a printer. You can print your labels yourself, put them on your packages. You go to Stamps.com, you click on the microphone, you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K. You get shipping and saving today with Stamps.com. It is worth it. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, but be patient with me. We got a lot of ground to cover today, a lot of moving parts. What started as a slow news day just continues to pick up as the day has progressed. You should know, by the way, that the markets have trended into negative territory since the head of the New York Federal Reserve came out and said, basically, don't think interest rates are coming down anytime soon. It dramatically shifted the trajectory of the markets. I've got to do a little bit of broken record time here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I got to get to this. It actually is a pretty big story related to TikTok. But first, let me get to this. Ilhan Omar's daughter, Isra Hirsi, has been suspended from Bernard College for her involvement in anti-Israel protests. So Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar's daughter, according to the New York Post, revealed Thursday she's been suspended from Bernard College over her involvement in anti-Israel protests on Columbia University's campus. I just received notice that I am one of 3 students suspended for standing in solidarity with Palestinians facing a genocide. Hirsi and 2 other students received notice of their suspension from the dean on Thursday morning, the Apartheid Divest organization said in a statement. Hirsi's suspension comes after at least 3 other people were arrested overnight in connection with an ongoing tent protest on the Ivy League school's Morningside campus. What's so notable here, okay, first of all, so this is her daughter, and you should know the girl has not only her pronouns in her bio, which means you should never take her seriously, but also a hammer and sickle. At the same time, the president of Columbia University was in the House of Representatives yesterday and had this exchange with Ilhan Omar.
Thank you. President Shafiq, I wanted to get a clarification earlier. One of my colleagues asked you, have you seen anti-Muslim protests on campus?
I have seen, we have had pro-Israeli demonstrations on campus.
No.
But
just
not
a protest that was
not,
against Muslims.
No, I have
you
not
seen one against Arabs?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Palestinians?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Jewish people? Have you seen a protest saying we are against Jewish people?
No, I have seen.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Aha, you see, they're only about Israel. Except while this was going on, there actually was a big anti-Semitic protest on Columbia's campus. And, of course, Ilhan Omar's daughter now suspended from Columbia for her actions. It's really remarkable, the level of anti-Semitism and denial here from some of these members of Congress, these progressive members. In fact, a handful of them voted against support of Israel yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives. There's going to be more legislation on funding Israel that they are protesting. The anti-Semites taking over. Now, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle on Thursday expressed outrage after a Politico report that the Chinese embassy lobbied members of Congress on legislation that would force the sale of TikTok by its Beijing-based parent company. These reports are no surprise. The Chinese Communist Party has a vested interest in keeping TikTok under its current ownership structure in the United States so it can influence and spy on Americans. Representative Mike Gallagher, outgoing chair of the House Select China panel, said in a statement to Politico, the more the CCP digs in to retain control of the platform, the more it demonstrates exactly why we must divest TikTok from the CCP. Gallagher's not alone. I don't like foreign governments, especially adversaries, interfering with our democratic process, but they do, says Mike McCall, Republican of Texas, chair of the House Foreign Relations Committee. TikTok has no connection with China, I thought, so why would they do that? Quipped Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts, a Democrat, also on the China Select Committee. It's so patently obvious that TikTok is owned and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party that if it takes the fact that the Chinese embassy is taking meetings on the Hill to convince you of that, you have been too far gone. Auchincloss says the lobbying effort's going to backfire. The legislation's going to pass. John Molinar, Republican of Michigan, the incoming chair of the China panel following Gallagher's slated exit from Congress, said the report, quote, definitely shows that the CCP is very influential on the issue and very active and illustrates the importance of why we need to separate TikTok's operations here in the United States. McCall's counterpart urged China to butt out of congressional consideration of the legislation. Greg Meeks, a Democrat of New York, said China is watching and China has been a part of helping Russia with their invasion of Ukraine. China should stay out of it, period. There's a wake-up call here that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. It is this, whether you wish to believe it or not, and it should be obvious to your eyes. It's not an intelligence propaganda campaign. It's not the CIA shaping your eyeballs. You can see it for yourself. China, Russia, Iran, they are the new Axis powers. They are working together. Iran sends its oil to China. China sends back money and technology that Iran builds drones with and sends to Russia to use in Ukraine. These three nations together are turning the world upside down. They are also spending enormous amounts of money on propaganda and websites and finding sympathetic voices in the West to do their bidding for them, sometimes unknown, to deny that they're up to no good. But you can see it with your own eyes. Forget the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia is trying to disrupt elections, not in this country. Take this country out of the equation. But Russia is trying to disrupt elections in Europe, to elect leaders in European countries who want to end NATO and upend the relationship of NATO powers with each other and secure them and their allegiances to Russia instead of the West. Now, the Russians can do this. The Russians on the world stage, they get to do what they want to do, but we don't have to fall for it. We don't have to go along with it, and we should know it's not in our interests to go along with it. And now you have China and TikTok. Every time I talk about this issue, I get angry emails from people who love watching cat videos on TikTok or whatever it is they watch. And they say, well, I shouldn't have to give up TikTok. Actually, you should. If China's not going to be unwound from it. You know, the dirty little secret, I suspect some of these people who are really angry are also the same people who get mad at made in China. They want to buy America. They want to buy in America, but use China's surveillance app to keep themselves entertained. Forget the logical consistency here. We live in an emotional world, and people aren't very logical. People aren't very reasonable. People are emotional, and God forbid you shatter their reality by giving them the truth on this stuff. China is an enemy of the United States. It's nice to see Democratic members of Congress beginning to refer to China as an adversary, because China is an adversary. They actually are an adversary of the United States. They actually are an enemy of the United States at this point. And they're working with the Iranians and they're working with the Russians. And the goal of the three of them is to upend the American-led world order. And I really am just kind of scratching my head at people on the right who would let them do it. The isolationist tendencies. And I get the fear of the budget. By the way, there are real concerns about the American budget here. The International Monetary Fund is beginning to warn the United States that its debt levels are unsustainable. Vanguard is out with a report today that they expect the bond yield to go above 5% because of economic instability in the United States related to our debt. The issue here, though, is that we need to stop spending money. We're not going to stop spending money. But we can spend smarter. We can spend less. We can restructure government. We can find some efficiencies in spending. We don't have to fund the study of transgenderism in Alaskan polar bears and Antarctic penguins. We don't have to fund the study of homosexual bee colonies. We don't have to fund this stuff. We got to get serious. We got to get serious people in Washington. And I'm sorry. When you look at someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene putting forward an amendment that if we spend money on Israel, it's got to be for Jewish space lasers, that's not a serious person. But too many people on the right would rather join the outrage chorus and the clown car chorus than actually be responsible. Or they get into this binary thinking, we can only do that. We can't do that. We have to do this, as opposed to both. And then you have the left. So, well, we can't do both either. Because to do that would be imposing America's will, American colonialism. We got two sides of the same crazy coin here. America's got to lead. We do have to get our fiscal house in order. We absolutely do. You've got international organizations like the IMF now saying, hey, your debt burden is becoming unsustainable, America. You need to do something. We need to do something because the Chinese see it as a vulnerability. The Chinese see our debt as a way to exploit us and bankrupt us, and so many members of Congress are falling for it. But that doesn't mean, well, we can't stop funding the border or we got to stop funding Ukraine. That's not how this works. There are plenty of things we've got to stop funding. Stop funding federal education payments to the states. This education's a role for the states. Let the states fund it. Sue the shipping company and make them pay for the bridge in Baltimore instead of the feds paying for it. Stop funding stupid research, scientific projects that are a waste of money. Stop earmarking money. Cut back spending in Washington. We have a huge problem. We're going to go over a fiscal cliff, but we're also going to go over a world economic cliff when China, Russia, and Iran consolidate their powers, turn on us, disrupt the world order, and then you think it's expensive to do the grocery store? Right now, you just wait. When the exchange rate shifts because so many people on the left and the right decided they didn't want to lead the world anymore. It really is just appalling to me to hear people on the right complain about supposed American imperialism. I would rather an American empire than a Chinese empire. I would rather American leadership than Russian leadership. Colonialism is not a bad thing. In fact, for the most part, the colonizers are the hero of the story. And if you don't think so, you're probably on the left. And there are too many people on the right who've decided it's bad to have some sort of American empire when it's not actually an empire. It's called leadership, something that the clown car show in Congress doesn't seem to understand anymore. You lead the world, you get the preferred rates, and you keep the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians sidelined. And too many people on the left and the right now want to mainstream the evil of China, Russia, and Iran because they're being entertained by TikTok. It's not a good setup for us. This cannot hold. 877-973-7425 is the number. Right now, I got to tell you, read Imprimis from Hillsdale College. The great thought leaders of the right are available in Imprimis completely for free. Been getting it since I was in law school. You go to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com today. You sign up with Hillsdale College, and you get Imprimis in your mailbox every month for free. It is very thoughtful. It's very thought-provoking. It's got great leadership insights and great conservative insights from the leaders of the conservative movement, people like Chris Rufo, Heather McDonald, Victor Davis Hanson, even Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College. They haven't had me yet, but we're working on it. Imprimis comes to your mailbox every month. It is a print publication. It stimulates your mind. You get it by going to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. ericforhillsdale.com. You put in your contact information so they can mail it to you. You never pay a penny. It is part of the educational mission of Hillsdale College. ericforhillsdale.com. Hello there. It is Eric Erickson. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program. As always, don't forget, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can be on the program. I don't know if you've heard about this. Palm Springs has decided there's going to be reparations in Palm Springs. Have y'all been to Palm Springs, California? I've been to Palm Springs. Go out there every year. There's a super secret meeting of the vast right-wing conspiracy that I get invited to speak at every year. Y'all, you got some whitey white people out there. They're all very well tanned, but they're white. But they're going to do reparations.
And we came out with some very strong programmatic efforts that we're going to be doing, including a community land trust, investment in small business, working on a healing center, potentially naming a park, and really continuing talks with the survivors and descendants and the people representing them.
Now, according to the city's attorney, if federal, state, or other outside funding becomes available, the city is willing to consider seeking out that funding and supplementing the amount. Now, this has been a long time coming for the Section 14 community since they filed their claim against the city in 2022. Now, while this is a step in the right direction, the attorneys representing them say they plan on coming back to the negotiating table for further discussions.
Now, you do need to know the history here. In the 1960s, Black and Hispanic residents of Palm Springs were pushed out, did not get compensation, their neighborhood leveled, And there are survivors who have filed settlement, and they're calling it reparations. It's actually legal settlement because they did not reimburse people fair value as the Constitution requires when they shove them out. So they got problems. You should know there are issues. There are problems. But at the same time, calling it reparations, and you're not really doing reparations. You're engaged in a legal settlement because of claims filed in a massive suit against you. To make it sound more historic than it is. And what are they going to do? Well, they're going to name something after non-white people. They're going to put it in a park. They're going to name it after someone who's not white. They're going to invest in affordable housing. No cash payments. I thought that's what we wanted with reparations, with cash payments to make people whole. Instead, they're going to virtue signal. And I am willing to bet you that's where all of this leads ultimately. Is you're going to get a bunch of people to do virtue signaling and make you feel good. And they will find leaders in non-white communities who they've paid off to tell you that's actually what reparations is all about. Is the virtue signaling to make you feel better. They'll get money. The poor people, they won't get any money. Because that's what happens with socialists and communists is the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And the poor get to complain, and then they get a propaganda campaign to tell them that actually they're well off. That's what happens in communist and socialist states, and that's what's happening ultimately with these reparations campaigns. Everyone that tried to do monetary reparations has wind up not very successful at it. It's a very silly thing anyway to try to have people today pay reparations for the sins of the past when there's been progress all along. But yet that's what the left wants, cash. That'll come back into their pockets somehow, I'm sure.